Welcome back, fellow Earthlings. It's been a couple weeks, and Christmas is already here. I can't believe how fast it's gone. But we are finally here. Tomorrow is Christmas Day, or at least it will be by the time this is posted. I don't celebrate Christmas myself, actually. This year, in fact, I am starting to celebrate Yule for the first time. And I have my personal reasons, and maybe by next year you'll know some of those reasons. And maybe for next year I will talk about how I'm deciding to celebrate Yule. But this year, I've taken a little bit after my parents in this whole process of sharing information with you. We've been going through the Bible chronologically. My name is Rogan, by the way. I am the mysterious stoner in the bowler. I've already had a little bit of weed, as you can probably imagine by now. But here, if you're visiting us for the first time, well, visiting me for the first time, I go through the Bible, having been raised on it by conservative Christian parents, and was one myself for quite a while. And I take the Bible at face value, same as my parents did, and take it apart piece by piece. What is good and what is bad. What we should learn from it and what we shouldn't. Because the Bible is not, I like to say this a lot, the Bible is not as holy of a book as what everyone makes it out to be. And I've already been through the whole book of Genesis. You can check that out, and it's I had a great time going through that. And next year I'll be starting on Exodus, and that's going to be really fun. But today, because it is Christmas time, and I used to celebrate Christmas, I don't anymore. Maybe next year I will tell you what I celebrate and talk about it. In fact, I probably will. But this year, like I said, we've been going through the Bible chronologically, much like my parents would. Every single day, we had to wake up at 7 in the morning, and we had family devotions. We would sing from a hymn book, which is agonizing to do when you have just woken up in the morning. When you wake up in the morning and you're groggy and tired and you haven't eaten and you are being demanded to sing something, and you're supposed to sound, and well, you'll get in trouble if you don't sound cheerful about it. I'm getting off track. Devotions were torture. The music, especially. But point being, we read the Bible every single day, chronologically, and we didn't skip anything, ever. But when it came to Christmas time, every Christmas morning, we always read the Christmas story in its entirety of what all the Bible provides, which is quite a lot. That's what I'm going to do with you today, except I'm going to sum it up as best I can. And we'll talk about how bullshit this story is that I have found so far, using the King James Version, the original, because that's what my family was raised on, and it's what a lot of Christians hold to very firmly, even though it's been proven since to be probably one of the worst English versions out there. But we won't talk about that. You can Google that and look that up for yourself. So you shouldn't believe everything you hear and read, even the Bible. Even what I say, don't believe what I say. Research everything. Don't trust anyone or anything. completely, ever. It will save you a lot of disappointment and heartache, and I have found out the hardest, one of the hardest of ways possible. So, without any further ado, after I take another puff of my weed here, we will begin. Now, if you're not very familiar with the Bible, there's something rather interesting you should know about it. The birth of Jesus, excuse me, the birth of Jesus is only mentioned in 2 of the 4 Gospels of the Bible. There are 4 versions of Jesus' life, and in 4 different books: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and all at the beginning of the New Testament, all about Jesus and what he did, and how he died, and everything. And they're all relatively the same. Some of them have the exact same stories in them. A lot of them don't. Well, there's only 4, but there's a lot that's in one book that won't be in another, and huge chunks that are completely left out entirely. And the birth of Jesus is one of them, only in 2 books, and the 2 books that it's in, the stories aren't even the same. It's guessed that they're 2 completely different stories. See, most of the time, you see the manger, you have Jesus in a stable, and there's Joseph and Mary, and the shepherds, and some animals, and then there's these wise men. The wise men are actually a completely different story. That they didn't show up when the shepherds did. The shepherds were actually first. And the wise men didn't show up for another year or 2 later. And each story is in 2 separate books. I don't know why they decided to do it this way. I think it's rather strange. I mean, can you imagine these 4 guys sitting around talking, I don't know what compelled them to write these books. Could they have, do you think it's possible that, do you think maybe they disagreed about some of the details and that's why they don't have all the same ones? Of course, a lot of Christians don't want to put any negative doubt on any of these guys. But, why would, if you wanted to make sure that the Bible was authentic, then shouldn't each of the Gospels have a similar, but their own unique perspective of the birth of Jesus, if that's so important to have? Because it's important enough to be in half the Gospels, but not enough to be in all 4. And then the ones we do have, it's not even all one story. You have to go to a completely separate book to find it. So, what? We'll get further into the story because of, it's just crazy. Now, the story begins in the Gospel of Luke, but I want to look at something in the book of Matthew. It's the first book. At the very beginning is a genealogy that many Christians love to claim is infallible proof of Jesus being related to Abraham. There's another genealogy somewhere else. I'm not, and it's a little bit different. I'm not an expert on this, all right? I know the Bible real well, but I'm not we're taking this as at face value as best we can. But this is a specific genealogy right here that's given from Abraham all the way to Jesus. And I never noticed this before. But it said it says in verse 17 of the first chapter that it's a total of 42 generations. It divides it into 3 groups of 14. Is how it words it. It's really fucking weird how it words things sometimes. Like the generations from Abraham to David are 14, from David to when they were enslaved in Babylon 14. I'm summarizing. And then from the people who, were in Babylon to Christ, 14 generations. Like, why couldn't you just fucking say 42 generations? Like, what the fuck? Really? But I decided, just for shits and giggles, they list all the names here, every single name. Abraham begot Isaac, Isaac begot Jacob, and so on, all the way down to Christ, Jesus. I decided to count them up. And there are not 42 here. I counted multiple times. I was a little stoned, so there were a few times where I had some different numbers. But I kept on counting over and over again. I came up with several systems to try and keep track of how many there were. And in the end, I kept getting 41. Like, you see, I was writing the shit out in the Bible, like counting shit, like you can see. I fucking hate math, but fortunately it was simple math, so it wasn't too terrible. You're welcome, I did it for you. But go and look at it yourself. Look it up, count it up for yourself. Tell me why I'm wrong if I am, because I think this is hilarious. If there's really only 41 here, I would like to know why. Why is there one left out here? What the fuck? The Bible says there are 42, but there's... I'm sorry, 41. Houston, we have a problem. The Bible is fallible. Carrying on. So, and just I also want to say about this. I wrote some thoughts down about this genealogy, and I may have to change my perspective later, just so you know. But this is what I've come to understand and believe here from my observations. But these are my thoughts that I had. While many believe this genealogy of Christ is evidence for his existence, it's very important to remember that nothing here, as in here in the book of Matthew, states that these are legally recorded in a government census. There's censuses mentioned that Joseph was involved in, but it's just mentioned here in the Bible. Like, where are those government documents? Do we have those? Do we have those for evidence, or do we only have the Bible saying that it happened? Because if we don't have evidence that it happened, then this is just hearsay. This could be told. These names could be completely made up. Like I said, for all we know, these names could be completely made up. I don't know what they are, but even those of the Jewish faith feel they have good reasons to reject this genealogy of Jesus as the Messiah. Christians aren't the only people who believe in the Old Testament. There's a whole nother faith, much older faith, built around the Old Testament that completely rejects Jesus as the Messiah. And they're the people who actually came from, or supposedly came from, Abraham. So, like, I'm sorry if this sounds offensive, but unlike all the Bible professors, preachers, and pastors, and all the Catholic leaders, including the Pope, who else would know and understand the ways of the Old Testament better than the people who came from Abraham and the Old Testament, the Jews, the Hebrews themselves? I'm not an expert on genealogies, and honestly, I don't know why any Christian pretends to be an expert on it. Of all the studying they do, an entire religion based on the Old Testament that denies Christ as the Messiah. Christians will go all day about the prophecies that Jesus fulfilled, and the thing is, the Jewish people that only believe in the Old Testament, they can go all day about why Jesus isn't the Messiah. So, who are we going to go with? This new evolved people of a different mindset, or the more original, more hands-on? They were kind of there first. They're a lot more integrated into and understanding the mindset of the Old Testament and the specifics of the prophecies and all that. If anyone should know better, it should be them, and their opinion should be a bit more respected than these other people. Like, I'm not saying Jesus wasn't a good guy or anything like that. I'm just, like, maybe he wasn't the Messiah, and maybe a lot of people don't accept him for very good reasons. Maybe you should open your mind and think about that. But those are my thoughts on the genealogy. Now let's get to the actual story. Now, the story begins it really begins in the book of Luke, the second book of the New Testament. Why Luke isn't first, I don't know. But the more complete story, of the actual birth and everything surrounding the birth, starts in Luke. And we're gonna skip right ahead to Mary, because there's some other things that happen around the birth of Jesus. He's got a cousin, John, who's born to a really old couple. That's supposed to be part of a prophecy as well, and he's like the prophet that shows up before Jesus, and he wears camel's fur. He's called John the Baptist. He's literally where all the Baptist churches came from, practically. He is why baptism is a huge thing in Christianity and Catholicism. But we're not really talking about him. We're going straight to Mary. And something you should know about Mary and the things of the nature of things back then. Women were married off a lot younger than 18. They could be engaged to a man and be married as young as 12 years old. That's how things were back then. So, I know a lot of pictures of Jesus and of Joseph and Mary like to depict Mary as being this relatively young woman, like 18 to 24, perhaps somewhere in the prime of her youth. But if we wanted to be a little bit more realistically, the potential that her being under 18 is a lot higher than what people like to think. Not a very comfortable thought, is it? That a 12-year-old virgin would be the actual person here. It's not an adult. Potential. It actually does not say how old Mary is. It only makes it the point to say that she is a virgin, which It's pretty easy to assume when you're only 12 years old. And they wouldn't be, and honestly, they pictured, like, because of how young a woman could be married, 18 to 25 would be kind of old to be getting married off. So the younger end of the spectrum was typically more preferable for a lot of marriages back in those times. But just keep that in mind, is that's what Jehovah is cool with. That he could have potentially made a 12-year-old pregnant. That's fucked up. We don't know if he waited till she was an adult. There's no way of knowing, because it doesn't say anywhere in the story. An angel just shows up and comes to Mary and has all these things to say to her. Not a lot of specifics are given about the angel. I mean, his name is Gabriel. And he just shows up and he starts saying all these miraculous things. Highly favored, the Lord is with thee. I mean, it would have been nice to know what kind of woman that Mary was, so that, if she's such a great role model for being chosen, it would have been nice to know what she did to appease God. Was she just really hot? Was Jehovah really into young girls? I don't know. The great god Zeus was really into women too. Like mortal women, raping them and, pretending to be their husbands to get with them. Really fucked up. Like, not all that different from Jehovah, just a lot hornier than Jehovah. And Gabriel says all these things to her about how great this baby will be that God is going to give her, and tells her to name him Jesus, which is actually, I believe it's Aramaic for Joshua, I believe. So all you Joshuas out there, congratulations, you're also a Jesus. And he'll reign over the house of Jacob forever, and his kingdom there will be no end. And Mary said to the angel, how shall this be, seeing I haven't slept with a man, basically. And the angel says to her, the Holy Ghost shall come upon thee, and the power of the highest shall overshadow thee. Therefore also that holy thing which shall be born of thee shall be called the Son of God. Why would he say that holy thing? Why is it a thing? Well, what? Okay, I have to pause here a moment, because I have a couple suggestions. That's basically it. Of Gabriel talking to Mary. I have a couple possible alternative explanations as to what may have happened here. One, aliens could have abducted her and impregnated her, and Jesus was a half alien of some kind. And they fed her this bullshit story to keep her calm about the whole thing. Two. Okay, I actually have three. But this one is quick. Two. She simply got raped, lied, and made up the whole story. Or maybe Joseph. Maybe she wasn't a Joseph. Maybe she wasn't actually a virgin and had and slept with Joseph beforehand and got pregnant by accident, and to try like before they got married. She accidentally got her pregnant before she got married. And they decided to make up this bullshit story. And maybe she was like a favorite of the family, and so they all got in on it. I mean, if the genealogy was correct, Joseph is a descendant of Abraham, who was a scammer. And it was a thing back in these times to where if a girl was unfaithful to her husband or her engaged to be, she could be killed, stoned to death. Not happy stoned with weed, no, stoned as in the rocks being thrown at them till they die. And she could have been a family favorite, and everyone pitched in to try and save her. And so they made up this bullshit story. And then the third possible one was that Mary was hanging out with some regular guy who happened to be named Gabriel. And they were doing some drugs. Maybe some LSD, some primitive form of LSD. Or shrooms. Some raw shrooms. And they got really high. And in Mary's vision, Gabriel turned into this white, beaming angel. And Gabriel just starts saying this random shit. Like, you're going to get pregnant. I know you're a virgin, but you're going to get pregnant. And you're going to give birth to this badass child who's going to free Israel from the Romans, and he is going to be so cool. His kingdom is going to last forever, and God thinks you're really fucking hot, and he thinks you're really sexy, and he's going to use you to make that baby, to make that Messiah baby. Yeah, the Holy Ghost is gonna come upon you, and you'll feel it. Oh yeah, you'll feel it later on. And then, because Gabriel is more, fuck, I had the word and I lost it. More accustomed to taking drugs, he sobers up more quickly than Mary, and then he roofies her, and then rapes her in her sleep. And she gets pregnant. And then she wakes up, and she's pregnant, and she doesn't know what happened. She just remembers being really high, and what she saw from being high. Barely remembers the sober version of Gabriel, because Gabriel is fucking gone by the time she wakes up. And she just has this vision in her head, and a pain she's never experienced before, but she's like, oh no, it must have been the Holy Ghost that angel Gabriel was talking about. Maybe that's what happened. Of course, then, I'm not sure how we would work in the fact that Joseph, I mean, maybe Joseph, Joseph. I don't know. I don't know how that would work in. But Joseph claims maybe to save Mary because he really liked her. Maybe he thought she was really hot or whatever. I don't know. Maybe he was really, truly in love with her and thought she was just acting a little crazy. With this story of hers, decides to make up his own story. Maybe. Because it says Joseph has a story. Joseph has a dream that an angel comes to him and tells him, hey, don't be afraid to take Mary. She's not crazy. She is impregnated by God. Go ahead and marry her. Maybe it was a mutual friend. Maybe Gabriel was a mutual friend. He raped Mary while she was drugged, and then he went over to Joseph's right after, or sometime after, and gets him really fucked up on shrooms or some primitive LSD, and then tells him, hey, don't be afraid to get with Mary so you can actually take care of my kid. Ha! Don't forget to name him Jesus, because that's what I told her. And you raise him, you take good care of him, he's the Son of God. I'm sure you do a fine job. So yeah, don't be afraid of marrying her. You do the right thing. And you take care of that baby that isn't yours. Who knows? Who knows what really happened? Tall tales happen all the time. So who's to say this isn't one? And that this isn't completely bullshit? And so around that time, there's a census taken, and everyone has to move and go to the places of their ancestral origin of the land. It was a Roman thing that they were doing, trying to get a count on everyone. And Joseph has to go back to Bethlehem, because that is where David is from, his great ancestor, as in the King David. And so we come to the part everyone's starting to get a little bit more familiar with. Joseph and Mary, pregnant Mary, very pregnant Mary, apparently, possibly 12-year-old pregnant Mary. They show up in Bethlehem, and because of the census and taxes going on, everything is full, and they end up going to a stable, or a, well, historically accurate, everyone likes to say it was actually a cave, literal cave, that they went into, and the baby was born there, and whoop-de-fucking-do for them, that they had somewhere relatively warm to do it. But it was also that different prophecies could be fulfilled. There's a lot of mentioning that here and there along the way. And then it switches over from Joseph and Mary to the angels, the shepherds, who are out taking care of their sheep. And there is a possibility that they were doing drugs as well. Shrooms. I like to say LSD because that's some trippy shit, but there's other shit out there that could probably make them hallucinate. And some of them could have been hiding it from the others. Like there could have been like one or two guys doing it behind a tree somewhere while the other guys were doing their job. And they're, these guys goofing off, they're getting high as fuck. And then, they see this bright star which, comes into circulation, proven that it's come into circulation. It's kind of a thing, so, and I'm not saying, and I never said that all of the things in the Bible were false. There's this big fucking star that happens to show up during Jesus' birth to apparently show the world that the Messiah is here. And that's literally fucking just a fucking star. And then these shepherds who were potentially doing drugs see this star, and then they see a whole choir of angels singing and telling them about this person being born. Could they have been doing drugs and there have been aliens involved? Possibly. Could it have been just drugs? Yes. Could Mary and Joseph actually have made this whole shit up? Because there are no names mentioned regarding these shepherds. It said that they go off telling other people. After they go and they stop by and they see Jesus, they run off and they tell the whole town about what all they've seen and heard. And everyone's probably thinking, man, you're doing drugs again. Didn't I see you buying from that one guy on the street corner? I know what you're up to, man. You're high off your shit. It's possible. It's completely possible. And Christians don't think about that. A lot of them don't have the exposure to the world to seriously consider that. Which is sad but true. I was one of them. There's no way I could have ever thought these possibilities up as a child. I was taught to accept all of this as true. That angels just pop up out of the sky and they're like, hey guys, face the goodwill towards men. There's a baby being born somewhere in a cave wrapped in manger, which is what they used to wrap dead people in. You'll know it's the one by the baby wrapped up in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger in a feeding trough. He's gonna save the world. Make sure to go tell everyone. Hey guys, join in and sing. Like, really? Would you buy that shit? Would you believe it if some random shepherd shows up on your doorstep telling you, hey, guess what I just saw? Angels appearing in the sky telling me about peace and good. Maybe there was some marijuana involved. Because peace and goodwill towards men is great. But I'm pretty sure weed isn't the only drug that can make you feel that way. Like, hey man. So like we were out in the fields, right? These angels showed up. They're like singing and talking stuff about this baby. Just got born. He's like in a cave somewhere. But he's gonna save us all, man. He's gonna save us all. He's gonna save us from the Romans. He's gonna bring peace, goodwill to everyone. It's gonna be awesome, man. It's gonna be fucking awesome. I'm gonna go to the next house and tell someone. Yeah, man. Right. Like drugs weren't involved. Okay. So that's the gist of Jesus' birth. So the story in Matthew starts off right out of the blue, no real background given, and no actual number of wise men given, but it just starts off. Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king of Israel. And there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, the capital. And they were saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. Now, I do suppose this could have happened right after as in days or weeks after the shepherds. If the star hung around, although it's possible it could have I don't know how astronomy works, but maybe the star came and went. Maybe it came back in another year or two. I don't know. It's really not clear at all when these guys showed up. But it does say that the star reappeared. So clearly it went somewhere, because then it shows up again. So maybe it was a year, and then the star decided to show up the next year, and then it's gone for a while. They've been talking recently about it showing up here, but then them saying it's on a cycle. So, how many other babies were being born at the same time as Jesus during this fucking star? Maybe there were other babies being born in caves and in mangers with only dead people wrappings to keep them warm. Jesus might not have been the only one. Or the shepherds might have been completely made up. But these wise men asking about the king of the Jews, Herod. I'm used to saying Harold a lot because I have a nephew with that name. Herod, the king, had heard these things. He was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Reason being that all Jerusalem was troubled with Herod, it was because Herod is a very paranoid individual, as we will soon find out. Well, later on. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. And so everyone looks at the scrolls and everything, and they say, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, and they go into that. And so Herod says to them, all right, you well, maybe three, you wise men, go find this baby and bring me word again where he is, so that I can come and worship him too. And so the wise men are like, cool, we'll let you know, and we'll be on our way. And then the star reappears for them. And they get excited, and apparently the star takes them right over where Jesus is. Over, if it's the cave, or if they found a place by then to stay, we don't know. But the star takes them to where Jesus is, and is like right over them. So it seems. Makes me wonder if maybe it actually wasn't the star, but maybe like an alien spaceship. I don't know. I bring up aliens because I think there's a good possibility they're real. I'll never say they are for real beyond the shadow of a doubt until I meet one. But I think there's a really good chance that they are, and that if they are, that some of the stories in the Bible could actually be aliens doing some of this shit, and the story just turns into a religion, or a told tale, a legend, with the details strewn, because they had no way of describing aliens and spaceships. They had very primitive descriptions because their technology was very primitive, and their imaginations were limited as well, to a certain degree. I mean, there were less people back then, so what could you expect? How else would you describe, like, how would the caveman describe an alien? Why wouldn't he think it was a god or an angel? So the wise men go off, and they find, thanks to this moving star that shows up and hovers right over where Jesus is, they find Jesus and they deliver their gifts to him. And they stay overnight wherever they are there, and they supposedly have this dream that tells them, maybe it's the aliens again, trying to save their project from being killed. Oops. They come to the wise men in a dream and tell them, hey, don't go back to Herod, just go straight back home. And so they do. And once Herod finds out that the wise men left without telling him where the baby was, he tells his troops to go to Bethlehem and kill every baby that is 2 years old and younger. Because he doesn't want to lose his crown. And that's what happens. He sends his troops out, but before they can get there, Joseph is also warned in the dream before it can happen, and he is told to go to Egypt. You know, I wonder if that is where the wise men came from. Wait, was he told to go to Egypt? No, yes, he was told to go to Egypt because that would be part of another prophecy being fulfilled, supposedly. So it makes me wonder all the more if that's where the wise men were from, because that's the east, and it would make sense if they went with the wise men. Maybe they had guards with them, maybe they had some protection, maybe they all went together, maybe. Although it's possible maybe they went two different directions. It doesn't say if they went together or not, but doesn't really matter. Point being, God warns Joseph to take Mary and the baby out, and they escape. No harm comes to them. But as far as the rest of the babies in Bethlehem, nothing's done. Nothing's done for those babies. They die. They all die. And the reason being, all the more reason to consider this a fucked up book. All these babies die by Herod, so that it would be fulfilled, so that it would fulfill another prophecy. Another fucking prophecy. A specific prophecy having to do with children being killed. So here's the question for God. If life is so precious and valuable, and He thinks every soul is important, why make a prophecy about that? About killing children, babies. And this is one of the most hypocritical things about Christians that I find, because their God does not care about children at all. He will make a prophecy and have children be slain just so he can give proof that he actually did impregnate a virgin so that he could have the offspring save the world. Why did all these babies have to die so that Jesus could live? For the sake of a fucking prophecy. Why couldn't the prophecy have something like of all the things that you can come up with, why did it have to be killing babies? Why couldn't it be something that wouldn't bring harm to anyone? Like, I don't know, a dog orgy in the cemetery, or something like that. That would be weird, right? A whole orgy of dogs fucking in the cemetery. That would be, just something, anything. I don't know. What? Or if you're going to have someone die, why couldn't it be like some kind of miraculous fight, or like someone being struck by lightning, a number of bad people being struck by lightning at the same time? Why do it have to be a bunch of innocent babies dying for the sake of a prophecy? What kind of God does that for the sake of a prophecy? I was like, oh, I'm going to write the prophecy. I like the idea, so I'm going to have a bunch of babies die. So I can prove myself. Fucking asshole. That's a fucking asshole thing to do. You're supposedly the most powerful being in the universe. You could have made a statement by actually saving all those babies. By stopping Herod. By killing Herod before he could make that order. Or like right after, to shock everyone and be like, oh, God struck him dead for giving that order to us. Maybe we shouldn't carry it out. I feel like that would have been a much better idea instead of letting all the babies die. I mean, am I the only one who gives a shit about the children? Even Jesus says, let the children come unto me. God is like, fuck the children, let's kill them all. For the sake of a prophecy, so I can prove myself and how real I am. Yeah. Fuck Jehovah. Fuck him. Now, there is a little bit more you could say to the Christmas story, but it's really not much, because it's when Jesus is a bit older and with his parents, and he's basically just kind of acting like a bit of a prodigy, asking a lot of intelligent questions and hanging out with, some of the religious leaders, and it's not that big of a thing. For that's essential to the Christmas story, but I bring it up because that is all that is mentioned between Jesus's birth and him leaving to Egypt, and after him coming back, he does that. But then nothing else is said about him or his life until he's an adult and gets baptized by John the Baptist. We have no idea how he acts as a teenager or a child, and I have to question God again on the decision of leaving any of those details out, because I feel that if God really wanted us to act like his son Jesus Christ so much, then we should have how he acted as a child and as a preteen and as a teenager and as a young adult, and then how he acted as an adult in his 20s before he started doing his work, his teaching and such in his 30s. Like, why does it skip straight to his 30s? Children can't mimic an adult that well. Why can't the children have their own example of Christ as a child, how a child should act? If Christ acts the way we should act, then for the sake of the children, they should have an example that's on their level that they can relate to, so that they understand how to act like Christ while they're a child. And that should help them be better children, right? And that should also help it make it a little bit easier for the parents raising them to be like Christ, right? Wouldn't that make sense? Same for the preteens and the teenagers, and good lord, the fucking 20-year-olds. My 20s were fucking shit, to a certain degree, depending on which point we're talking about. Some of it was awesome, but there are no examples given of how Jesus acted as a young adult. How he worked with, what was his take on masturbation? How often did he do it? Did he really die a virgin, like most Christians like to think he believed? Well, they like to think that he did. Then there are the versions that say He married Mary Magdalene and had children. So who are you going to believe? You can't prove either one, really. I mean, perhaps the people that say that Jesus had children, maybe they have something to go along with why they think that. Maybe they have another book. I don't know. Do your own fucking research. Don't believe what everyone tells you. That's what fools do. That's what sheep do. Don't be a foolish sheep. So, to summarize, the Christmas story is potentially about this 12-year-old girl who gets impregnated and quite possibly doesn't actually know how she got pregnant. But for the sake of the story, we'll just say it was God. Let's say God impregnates a 12-year-old little girl. And then has Joseph and Mary go through all this shit, all this embarrassment of dealing with, well, because it's kind of an embarrassment when you're engaged to be appears to have cheated on you, and like what kind of a man are you to like still marry her anyways? Like, are you super forgiving? Like, did she get raped and you still, like, that would make sense if you still marry a woman. I mean, maybe that is what happened and they made up that story to try and, because they loved each other so much, but Mary didn't want to admit to being raped. Maybe. I mean, that's possible. Maybe if she got raped by someone that she didn't want to expose, so she made up this name Gabriel. The possibilities are endless, and Joseph was just in on it to try and save her. Why do we have to assume that everyone in the Bible tells the truth, when clearly even Abraham doesn't? I mean, Abraham's a fucking scammer, and they're doing this. There's all this bullshit going on at the same time, and not even the entire story is recorded in both books. You have to go to two different books for it. Like, come on, like, were they talking and Luke was like, hey, Matthew, are you going to include the part about the star and everything? And Matthew's like, no, I thought I was going to leave that out. I've got the other thing, but I'm going to include the genealogy. It looks like, oh, okay, I'll leave the genealogy out of mine then, but I'll just talk about the star, and you just talk about the wise men. And I guess between us, hopefully, if they find our books, everyone will be able to put everything together. If they don't, well, tough shit, and they'll lose something important that was, it'll just suck if they don't have all four of our books. Shit, what if there were actually like 5 or 6? Wasn't there some other books written about Jesus that weren't accepted by the Catholics? I mean, really, you trust the Catholics, the fucking pedophiles, you trust them to put the book together? They're the ones that put this book together, the English version, that has since been proved to be one of the lesser accurate versions. You're really going to trust them to put this book together and say that some of the other books that they decided to leave out of this book aren't just as authentic as the Bible? I mean, what if they sinned against God by leaving one of those books out? What if they weren't so inspired by God? What if we all fucking questioned these things? Who knows where we would be today? But that's the Christmas story. Oh, so many potentials for drugs in there. Jeez. Even the wise men could have been on drugs, for all we know. We don't know what kind of wise men they were. They looked at the stars, but that's all we know. They could. Who knows what else they could have done? They could have been smoking weed as well. Who knows? It's the Bible. We can't confirm almost anything about it. Like a few things here and there that may have been true, but not really enough to prove the whole thing. Jesus is one of the foggiest people in history to be proven. A lot of historians that take their job seriously don't think he was real because of so much lack of evidence. The Bible is like almost practically the most there is for evidence, and that's not real evidence. There's, like I said, the genealogy is not an official government document. It's only here in the Bible. The only genealogies that exist are here, and they could have easily been fabricated if they wanted to. And as many times as these have been translated and turned over and over again, no wonder there's only 41 names given in the generations of Jesus in Matthew instead of 42, like it says there should be. Good. This book, everyone takes it so seriously, but you really shouldn't. Oh, and furthermore, the professionals who studied the Bible believe that the birth of Jesus actually happened in somewhere like February, not December. Which is part of why I don't celebrate Christmas. See, everyone says put the Christ back in Christmas, but everything that makes up Christmas isn't like only the angels and the nativity scene are Christmas. The Christmas tree did not come from the Bible story. The Christmas ham is actually a completely separate tradition, because the Jews don't even eat ham. Santa, of course, nowhere in there, obviously. The Little Drummer Boy is one of my favorite ones that is not in the Christmas story anywhere, but he gets his own fucking song. At some point, I'm going to have to look up the origin of that bastard and see where the fuck he came from. Did I say the Christmas tree? Well, the Christmas tree, obviously. But the wreaths and everything, all the green and the red, the colors, just everything comes from, like, and even the time of year, December 25th itself. Like I said, Jesus was born, if he was real, and the historians are the people, the experts who study the Bible and try and gauge things, if they're anywhere near accurate, then February is when Jesus was born, and not December. December 25th belongs to like several pagan traditions. The Yuletide, or the Yule and the solstice, the winter solstice, and I'm not an expert on all that, but Christmas doesn't go with any of that. Angels and nativity, Christmas lights, Santa, all the visuals that you get that isn't Bible affiliated came from, and even the time of year are completely separate. So Happy Yule. They still believe in gift giving. Gift giving is not part of the Christmas story either. Sure, God gave his son to us, but that's it. A lot of babies died so that Jesus could be born. Thanks, God. That's great. Not to mention all the assholes who killed in your name that you didn't do anything about. Thanks for that too. Including all the pedophiles who, get away with shit because they're popes and priests. Thanks for doing nothing about that. All affiliated with your book and your name. you don't do shit to defend it, or, save the innocent from literal wolves in sheep's clothing. Thanks. Merry fucking Christmas, asshole. I will tell you this though. I think, in the off chance that Jesus was a real person, obviously I haven't read the rest of the New Testament yet to get to refresh myself on what he said, but based off my memory of the many times that I have read this book before, he seemed like an actually pretty chill guy. I don't think that the Bible displays him accurately. I think some of his teachings are accurate and true. Some of the things he says are applicable and very useful in developing ourselves into mature and proper human beings. I think that's a very good possibility, because he's got some decent ideas here and there. Probably not perfect, but honestly, the depiction that the Bible gives, as inaccurate as the book already is, we can't completely trust the depiction of Jesus that we have here. So, as much credit as I would like to give the real Jesus, if there was one, it's really hard to, because the best depiction we have is already fucked up. And we have to be really careful and test what is said to see if it's true and actually applicable. Some of it is, like, treat your neighbor as yourself, the golden rule. That's a pretty logical one, but we'll get into that when we get to the New Testament and can dive into more of what he says. And I'm really looking forward to that down the road, because I think we'll find an interesting number of positive things that we can find from the Bible. And it makes me nervous thinking about that, because of, it was just so much a part of my life, and then to learn how much of it isn't true, how much of it needs to be questioned and to not be used for an example to live by, it really makes you not want to come back and trust this book, to want to give it a chance, because believing this book hurt me so much, and it's hurt my family. And Christmas was never that great a time for me anyways before, but since leaving Christianity, it's meant all that much less to me. And it's been a real struggle to not be a Scrooge and a Grinch about Christmas. And this past year, I finally decided, what, I need to be more positive about this time of year, because the bottom line, I mean, it's bullshit how it got in there, but the bottom line of the Christmas message is peace and goodwill towards humankind. And if that's what we can focus on, if that's what we can all focus on for once, leave the bullshit out, we'll be just fine. Because in the end, that's all that matters, is learning to have peace and goodwill towards each other as a human race. That's what matters in the end. That's what makes gift giving so wonderful. And I think that's part of why it feels good to give to other people, because we're I believe we are connected to each other, especially to the ones we care about. And when we see them happy, it makes us happy. And the thing is, it just doesn't work that way with friends and relatives and the people we love and care about. This works towards our enemies as well. When we learn to respect them for what they are deserving of, if there's anything worthy of respecting, and you choose to treat them fairly, like they deserve, not revenge for revenge, but fairly, and and you choose to show mercy over hatred, learn to be forgiving instead of holding a grudge, it would make the world a tremendously happier place. If having peace and goodwill was the priority of every religion, to the point of saying, you know what, it's okay that you don't believe exactly what I believe. As long as we're getting along together, we're not hurting each other, we're not getting in each other's way, we're not shoving our beliefs down each other's throats forcefully. We're getting along. We are making peace, we are being friends. That is what matters. If you go to hell in my religion, well, that's on you for not believing what I told you. But, and if I go to hell in your religion, well, that's on me for not believing in you. You know what? Why can't people just be like that? Oh, of course, I'll tell you why. It's because certain religions explicitly obligate you to convert other people. And some people get really, really, really carried away. Like to an embarrassing degree. Like more embarrassing than being a missionary for the majority of your life. Even more embarrassing than that. But that is the wonderful truth. Well, the wonderful tale of Christmas. And to wrap this up, because this has been a long video, I have a Christmas gift for you. Especially you potheads out there, but of course it's for anyone who wants to enjoy. I threw something together, just a little something of a musical nature. And I'm going to post it tomorrow on Christmas Day. So I hope you will enjoy it. I hope you have a wonderful Yule. And I will see you again on the, well, it should be the first Saturday. If not the first Saturday, then the next Saturday of 2021. Until then, my friends, stay safe and farewell.